Shalom, giving all praises, honor, and glory to our power Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rachak, Kodash, double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders, a great millstone, peace and blessings to the hopeful elect of the tabernacles of David, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, wherever you may be, and wherever you may be, to I say Shalom, Yahshua, Shalom. All right, we're going to get into a few things here. Started off by this that I saw had in my device. It was a snapshot. I decided not to go into it, just to grab the snapshot though. So it says John and his family have long considered themselves public servants, the good guys, charged with enforcing the law Congress enacted. Others see them as something far worse. At USA Today, reporters spent time with this family of 4 ICE agents to report on their perspective, right? So a family of 4 are operating as ICE agents. And it reminded me of what's that guy? Dog the Bounty Hunter. Y'all remember him? Okay. Him and his whole family, they would go out bounty hunting. All right. And that's basically what ICE does today. They're bounty hunting. Okay. Because remember they had the recruitment thing. You can pay all the school money. You get this money up front. You get this, such and such a month. And in a time where economy is hit, people's pockets are hit, complaints are at an all-time high. That was right up their alley, all right, to put those incentives out there for people to join ICE, especially those so-called races, right? Those are races, like Edomites, right? Those that have been waiting to get them hands on some Israelites, and I mean, really not knowing that they're Israelites, but you know what I mean, all right? The Negroes, all right, or the Mexicanos, all right, and then so on and so forth. You know how it is with Esau, right? So just waiting to get their hands on the Israelites, so they sign right on up for it. So you have a family of 4 here, and as always, bring out that scripture in Lamentations 4. All right, they hunt our steps that we cannot go in our streets. I always bring that scripture out, because until the ministry is sold up, we still got to teach repentance to our people, because there's always hope. Okay, we hope to be of the hope of the elect. All right, hopeful elect. We hope to be the elect. All right. But the gospel has to be preached into the 4 corners of the earth. All right. To repent. Because if you don't, the Lord's going to come, he's going to wreak havoc on your life. All right. Will be in deletion. Okay. But yeah. So yeah, I mean, it says, reporters spent time with this family of 4 ICE agents to report their perspective. And, it says read more there. It says U.S. Today exclusive. This family of ICE agents wants to create a safer America. How is it making America safe? All right, safe by removing anybody who's predominantly not Edomite. All right, as they would see it, not white, right? But those that are who are not Edomites, you have the lie going out saying that it's the criminals, but talks keep coming out about how the majority of the people that ICE has detained and probably deported have been people with 0 criminal record history. All right. So we all know, but we know this is a play against the tribesman. All right. So it says, this family of ICE agents wants to create a safer America. They see themselves as crime fighters. Others see them as something far worse. All right. And that was that. Like I said, we're not going to get into that. I just wanted to bring that up since it was in my device. So I want to go ahead, because I'm constantly trying to make space in my device. So I'll go ahead and get that out of there. All right. So just give me a second here. All right. So here's hold on. I actually need that. I think I need that. Let me just, okay. So here's the first thing we're going to jump into. It says Venezuelan oil tanker seized by U.S. is headed to Houston. Actually, I don't think that's the one. No, there's actually another one I wanted. I don't think this is the one. There was one about Russia. Hold on, bear with me. Let me see if I can pull up the other one. All right, Slacky. So I have to go and find it somewhere else. But we got this from TASS News, which I believe TASS is actual Russian news agency, if I'm correct. Doesn't really matter. We just need the article. The proper article was the last one. So it says Russia seeks answers from U.S. on seizure of tanker off Venezuelan coast. So because we already know about the recent situation. I saw an article. I think it was in Natural News. It was talking about that, basically calling it piracy because they pretty much stole, they just raided the tanker and just stole the oil and then said, oh, we're just going to keep it. All right. It's going to Houston. Okay, Houston, we have a problem. So, and you know that China has invested money into Venezuela. Okay. Which we know all these countries, that are doing that. It's basically over the resources, all right? Because Venezuela has a lot of different resources, but the main two are oil and natural gas, all right? And just ironic that the U.S. stole oil, all right, and they're just gonna plan to sell it. Okay, so yeah, that oil and natural gas, but there's other resources that you can find in Venezuela, and China has invested money, all right, into Venezuela, okay, because they can get a stake. They're a bigger hand in it, because you see, U.S. is just trying to fully take it over like they do naturally. These Edomites, they'll just try to fully take over a country. That's why they keep talking about a regime change, all right? So they want to get Maduro out of there, threatening, I think it was like his nephew or something like that. Get Maduro out of there, okay, so that they can set up their puppet king, puppet leader, all right, so they can take control of that country's resources. Meanwhile, in the public eye, like on the world stage, it's like, oh, see, we brought peace and stability to Venezuela. They were doing this, they were doing that, they were bringing drugs into America, and blah 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 blah. We stopped this, and but behind the scenes, they're just grabbing resources. All right. So it says Russia seeks. So this is the coming up after that situation there, because Russia, um, Russia kind of supports Venezuela as well. So Russia seeks answers from U.S. on seizure of tanker off Venezuelan coast. All right. So the Russian foreign minister also said that Moscow wants discussions on the fight against drug trafficking and ensuring maritime security to be collective, so that no nation will be staring down unilateral actions. All right. Moscow, December 11th. TASS. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov demands that the United States provides they demand that they provide a reasonable justification as to why it detained a tanker off the coast of Venezuela. Yeah, because if you're saying that you're blowing up drug boats, what does oil have to do with stopping drugs? Okay, you're supposed to be supposedly, allegedly, you're stopping drugs on drug boats coming to America. So what does that have to do with you stealing oil? All right. So, but just he's just moving sloppy like that, right? But he's the hammer of the earth, man. Okay. What it says, his look was more stout than his fellows or something like that. Okay. Esau's very bold with what he does because he knows that the Lord has given the earth into his hands. Job 9:24. The earth is given into the hands of the wicked. It goes back to his blessing. You don't think he knows his blessing? Genesis 20:7. All right. That he would have the fatness of the earth and the dew from heaven above, and that he should live by the sword. He knows his blessing. That's why he's operating the way that he's operating. He knows he has the fatness of the earth. He knows that he has the power seat of the earth as of now. So it says that they provide a reasonable justification as to why it detained a tanker off the coast of Venezuela en route to Cuba with Venezuelan oil. So they just, short-stopped this oil that was going to Cuba. I really hope that the United States, although they consider themselves entitled to conduct such operations, all right, see, I really hope that the United States, although they consider themselves entitled to conduct such operations, will somehow explain out of respect for other members of the world community, all right? Because prying eyes are looking and people are wondering, all right? Drug, oil doesn't add up, all right? And even just the drug boat strikes, those don't add up because there's no evidence that these are drug boats, all right? You don't know what they were doing, where they were going. It's probably some man that was going out in the ocean to fish for his family or something like that. Who knows? All right. But you're blowing the boats up without giving these people a proper trial. Like if they were drug boats, and that means they're drug traffickers, which means they're criminals, which means they are to be apprehended and have a day in court. But you just blew them up. See? Out of respect for other members of the world community, what facts led them to take such actions? So they're demanding you explain why you're doing this, because drug boats ain't adding up. He said during embassy discussion on the Ukraine peace process, there is too little information, which there's not going to be a peace process. I mean, there may be a peace process, but there ain't going to be no peace. There is too little information here because I do not know how the United States views the Venezuelan situation, except that President Donald Trump has spoken publicly demanding a regime, there you go right there, regime change or voluntary resignation of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. And also, you got a lot of Israelites down there, so you don't think Esau knows that, okay? To some degree, maybe not everybody on, obviously not on the governmental level, but to some degree, some of these people got to know, what's going on. To some level, maybe it's above their pay grade, but to some level, somebody's got to know exactly who these people are. All right, so it's like, oh, they're Israelites, and it's whatever, right? What are they gonna do? Okay, which I think I can't remember if we pulled it up or not. It either pulled it up or talked about it, but there were some stats that I pulled up, or I should say research. I can't remember if I pulled it up or not, but showing America versus Venezuela. Okay, like their ships, their warships, fighter planes, even the army and whatever else, just from a military aspect, just far outweighs and surpasses Venezuela. But the thing is, Venezuela's got people like China and Russia and so on and so forth who actually, are, will back them up. That's what makes it even. What's that? Isaiah 14, has thou become as weak as we? That's what makes things even now, okay? Because everybody's got nuclear capability. So America can't just, because imagine in real time, imagine if America was the only one who had nuclear capabilities right now with all the things that are going on Earth. Everything's normal except for minus nuclear weapons from everybody else except for America. They'd be doing more than what they're doing now because they know they can threaten that, like Japan, right? Threaten that place, and if it comes to it, all right, just bomb them, all right. What it says, I think that's in Revelation, where it says he called down fire from heaven or something like that. I can't remember exactly how his word is. I know it's one of the chapters of Revelation, like 8 or 9 or something like that. Okay, or if I'm correct, it might be around there somewhere. All right, but yeah, you all this, you drop these bombs, all right. Well, in particularly when you're talking about Japan, fat man, little boy, I think that's how you call them, all right. So if they were the only ones with nuclear capability, they'd be doing, they'd be a lot more aggressive than they are. But because they're not, they have to think twice, especially when Russia pops up in the picture. America always thinks twice, okay? Because they have become as weak as we, meaning the other nations, right? So everybody's got nuclear, which that's the will of the Lord, all right? He says that I created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire and the waste to destroy. All right, I want you all to create these nuclear missiles so you all can come and fight World War III, and then you all eventually shoot those same missiles, which are mine, the weapon of my indignation, okay, on Babylon the Great to destroy her. But let's continue with the article, though. It says, there's too little information here because I do not know how the United States views the Venezuelan situation, except that President Nero has spoken publicly demanding a regime change or voluntary resignation of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. But Chevron is operating in Venezuela. Yeah, because Chevron, yep, I believe you're beautiful. Got to mention that because I actually looked not deeply into it yesterday. But yeah, I think Chevron is owned by, we'll just say Venezuela as a whole. I don't know the real exact people, all right? But Chevron is their oil company, all right? Chevron is operating in Venezuela, buying Venezuelan oil, okay? Or actually not like Venezuela's, but it's basically it's a major company that deals, okay, in Venezuela or, in other places. Cause you got Chevron here, right? So, right. Anyways, but not Maduro, but Chevron is operating in Venezuela, buying Venezuelan oil. What illegal volumes of this type of fuel were on this tanker? We need to get to the bottom of that somehow. So it's saying, so they're questioning, like, so was this oil illegal? What illegal volumes of this type of this type of fuel were on this tanker? We need to get to the bottom of that somehow. All right. Where they were claiming, I read something yesterday about how they've been supplying China with a lot of oil. I can't remember the percentage. I believe they were the most, like 60 or 70%. I can't remember. But Venezuela is supplying China with oil, but they do it off of what they call ghost ships. I can't remember if that's any one of these articles. I know I read that somewhere. Ghost ships or something like that. You try to keep them off the radar. I'm not sure how true that is, but I wouldn't doubt it. Anyways, Lavrov also said that Russia wants discussions on the fight against drug trafficking and ensuring maritime security to be collective so that no nation will be staring down unilateral actions. Is this it? So yeah, I'll read that. On the tanker, earlier, Trump said that the tanker was detained off the coast of Venezuela and that the United States plans to keep the oil. Yeah, we all saw that. He also promised to disclose the owner. The U.S. Department of Justice said that the tanker was transporting oil from Venezuela and Iran in violation of the U.S. sanctions regime. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi also claimed that the ship was used to support foreign terrorist organizations. In response, it's everywhere, right? But we'll get to that. In response, the Venezuelan government in a statement accused the U.S. of blatant theft, all right, and described the seizure as an act of international piracy. It said it would denounce the incident before international bodies, all right? So this is the situation with that. They're saying it was drug boats, but, what does drug boats have to do with you taking oil? So now, you have people demanding an answer, all right, on why you took this oil, okay? Because that has nothing to do with drug boats, all right? So that's that. It says Russia seeks answers from U.S. on seizure of tanker off Venezuelan coast. Let's move on to the next one. All right, here's a big one. So it says targeted anti-Shimsham, all right? 16 deleted, 13 injured after father and son terrorist attack Sydney propeller hat celebration, all right? Okay, so try to get through that one. You know how that is. So yeah, I'm not even gonna try to read that title again. You try to be careful. Sometimes, just go at it. But I be trying to be careful. But you see it, you can read it on the screen for yourself. 16 deleted, 38 injured after father and son, celebration. All right. So live feed of terror attacks. I said it anyways, didn't I? See, of error attack. All right. I mean, sometimes you can't escape it, man. So it says shooting during a Hanukkah event at Bondi Beach. 2 gunmen open fire, discharging dozens of rounds. The 2 shooters are father and son. A bystander, and there's a reason why I'm getting into this. I'm going to show you why down below. It says the 2 shooters are father and son. A bystander intervened and disarmed one attacker. 16 people confirmed dead, including a 10-year-old kid. New South Wales minister says, blah, 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 blah. 38 others wounded, several critically wounded. One suspect was deleted. Another is in critical condition, so I'm not sure if it's the father or the son, which got deleted. Doesn't matter. All right, check this out. Police are examining a possible IED connection. Deadliest Australian shooting since 1996. Here's what drove me to this. When I lit this guy up. So 24-year-old Naveed Akram was identified as one of the suspected gunmen. Israel says blood of the victims is on the hands of the Australian government. And Thawadi Habashman shot because this morning there's another article that goes along with this one because I had these from I believe yesterday. All right, but I got one more this morning that actually ties back into this one. Now, I lit up the name Naveed Akram because this guy is supposed to be a so-called Islamist type of guy. So this will make the 4th so-called terrorist event, which I believe the first 3, which all happened just very recently, I believe they were all here in Babylon. And then you have a 4th one popping up. So remember I can't remember, it was the top of this year or last year. It was planes dropping from the sky. It was chickens being burnt up, bridges being thrown down, trains just falling over like tipping cows, right? So a chain of events that were just constantly happening like that. And all of a sudden you have a chain, an uptick of chain of terrorist attacks. And they've all been linked back somewhere or another to so-called Islamist people or whatever you want to call them. So it says now video shows one of the Bondi Beach terrorists taking shots at a propeller hat man who refuses to take cover and stands up pointing his finger at him. And I'm not even going to go over there to the video or whatever. because I believe that's where that link leads to. Police say 14 people gave up the spirit at the scene, and another 2 people, including a 10-year-old girl and a 40-year-old man, have since gave up the ghost in the hospital. These who died are yet to be formally identified. However, NSW Premier Chris Min said the victims range in age from as young as 10 to 87. Okay. Don't want to read. I really probably should jump through this. There's a lot here. Oh, that's a whole lot here. Okay. Let's see if we can just get the nitty gritty, what we need. Which I believe we got what we need anyways. Sky News has identified one of the terrorists in the horrific attack as a attack on a small propeller hat celebration as 24-year-old Naveed Akram. Okay. So it's pretty much the same thing over here in different. I believe it's just going to different platforms and giving you different links to the videos or to the video. I'm just trying to see what else is here. Bondi Beach error incident appears to be the result of a mass migration failure. Liberals across the West, driven by what some say is described as self-checkout empathy, just in case, imported radicalized third worlders into society. Whether in Australia, Germany, across Europe, or in the U.S., the rise of nationalism is a direct result of the blowback phase being supercharged by these error incidents, all right? So I think most of this is pretty much the same information over and over and over, just told in a different way. So what we'll do is let's get that headline because it's going to jump over anyways. And I got the guy highlighted. Let me make sure I got it again. Okay. All right, Naveed Akram. All right. So it says, well, we don't even, I'm not going to read that again. Okay. Targeted, anti-Shim 16 deleted, 38 injured after father and son terrorist attack Sydney propeller hat celebration. All right. So they're supposed to be at the beginning of the Hanukkah so-called. All right. So let me pause. All right. So that article actually leads over here to this. So it says, Bondi Beach error attack, right? And lo and behold, looks who pops up on the right side of the screen. So it says Australian Prime Minister rejects Netanyahu's linking of Palestine recognition to Bondi Beach attack. How does that tie in together? We don't know, but we know how the serpent is. All right. So it says the Australian Prime Minister rejects Netanyahu's linking of Palestine record. So because remember, I believe it was earlier this year where it was countries that came together that was like, yeah, we're going to recognize Palestine as a state or something like that, right? And of course, Bibi, right, and the gang were against it because what they're trying to do is take over everything right around the state of Israel, West Bank, Gaza Strip, and all the area over there, and furthermore to all the lands that are promised to us. That's where that Greater Israel project comes in. So he's saying that by recognizing Palestine as a state, basically having sovereignty, this is why this attack. He's linking this attack to that. Okay. So Israel Prime Minister on Sunday accused Anthony Albanese of doing nothing to stop the spread of anti-Shim. All right. So this is the talk, and we know how it is. All right, with these propeller hats, man. Okay. Because eventually they're going to start to, which they kind of not really heavily, but I'm pretty sure they're going to start to change up algorithms and stuff like that. Maybe start to spike on keywords and, because really what they're moving into is what they're trying to move into is a world where you can't speak it back against the government, which really not mean like the regular government, the ultimate government, which are the bankers. All right, with what they're doing in the world. So we'll just say government for lack of better words. You're not gonna be able to speak out against the government, or you get flagged. Like the one guy that got picked up, I believe, was in the UK because he made a comment on social media, and the police came to his door and picked him up. Like, yeah, you got to roll out. Well, what are you talking about? Yeah, you made a post here. That's what a type of system they're trying to bring to America, where you can't speak out against the way that the society is going, or what the way the elites have driven the society, what the government is doing. Or I'm not okay with that. All these kind of differences, your opinions and stuff. Like people do now on social media, their opinions and things of that nature. Especially if you speak about the propeller hats. All right, so I wouldn't doubt that's going to start to receive a heavier crackdown, because this is now the fourth so-called error attack centered all around the same, so-called nationality of people, which, so like I said, some of those has happened in the States. So it says what we know so far about the attack. All right. Australia's prime minister has rejected accusations from his Israeli counterpart, Benjamin Netanyahu, that Australians' recognition of a Palestinian state earlier this year, had contributed to Sunday's deadly anti-Shemsham terrorist attack on Bondi Beach in Sydney. So he's linking people, countries, or whatever. In this guy here, all right, the Australian prime minister's, his part in recognizing Palestine as a state is the reason why this attack happened in his country in Australia. So he's basically, what's the word that you could use for that? It's not quite blackmail. Man, I can't think of the word I'm using, but you kind of, if you could think of the word that I'm thinking of, or something similar, you kind of see what I'm trying to say here, right? Because they played a part in recognizing Palestine as a state, but now you have terrorist attack in your country because you recognize Palestine as a state. So that's how he's playing the situation here. So in an interview with national broadcasters, Anthony Albanese was asked if he accepts any link between the recognition and the massacre in Bondi. "No, I don't," Albanese said, adding, overwhelmingly, most of the world recognizes a two-state solution as being the way forward in the Middle East. 15-ish people died and dozens more were injured after two local men opened fire on a crowd gathered to celebrate the religious festival of Hanukkah. Both men were shot by police, one fatally. Albanese did not directly respond to Netanyahu's accusation that he had replaced weakness with weakness and appeasement with more appeasement when fighting anti-Semitism. All right, so that's his words there. "This is a moment of national unity where we need to come together. We need to wrap our arms around members of the." See, there you go. Light it up. Light it up. See, pushing these people, because mind you now, which it's a slap in the face, man. Okay, to us natives. I'm talking about us Israelites. These people parade on the earth as if they're us. Meanwhile, we're really the ones who suffered the things written in the scriptures, man. That's a slap in the face, man. And the Lord gonna deal with these people, okay? But that's the other topic. Let me stay on point though. All right. You walk around the earth acting like they're us, lying to the people, okay? Calling these Palestinians Amalek and all this madness, okay? Only using the Bible when it justifies one of their wicked, plots and ploys that you're trying to make. Meanwhile, we really suffered the things written in the scriptures, man. We really suffered these different things, atrocities that happened to us in captivity, man. Oh, I had to catch myself. I'm about to say F these people up. I'll try to not, all right? But you get my point though, all right? These people here, okay, in the this new world order they're trying to bring forth is all people being one under Esau Edom by way of his AI technology, all right? And then continue masquerading with these Israelis as the real true people, man. The Lord's not going to allow that, okay? Because that's not how the scriptures are written. It says we need to wrap our arms around members of the Jewish community who are going through an extraordinarily difficult period, Albanese said. "My job is to make it clear that Australians," and how are they going through a difficult period? Through this attack? Because over there in that land, they ain't going through a difficult experience. That's y'all that are attacking everybody, claiming that the lands are yours, is why y'all time are difficult. Because if you just left people alone, okay, you wouldn't probably be in so much, deep water, okay? It says, "My job is to make it clear that Australians overwhelmingly stand with the Ish community at this difficult time. Tensions between Australia and Israel have been high since August, when Israel revoked the visas of Australian diplomats in occupied Palestine, which Australia's Foreign Minister Penny Wong said at the time was an unjustified reaction following Australia's decision to recognize Palestine." Okay. Australia's government said the decision was part of the coordinated international effort to build new momentum for a two-state solution. a ceasefire to halt the bloody Israeli offensive in Gaza and release hostages taken by Hamas. Da 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 da. All right, so really, I just want to link these two articles together. And get that headline again. Australian Prime Minister rejects Netanyahu's link in the Palestine recognition of Bonnie Beach attack. So I want to grab to show you that this dude here. Actually, let me see here. Yeah, that's what I need. And it should still be here. There it is. Yep. Because I definitely forgot his name. If he comes up, hopefully he comes up. We can see the guy. As a matter of fact, let's. Oh wait, hold up. Okay. So here we go. Let's grab this from the Times. You know, look the same. Look like they put on weight or something. What is this? Is dude wearing fringes? Is this dude wearing fringes? I don't know. They might just be the bottom of his shirt. Or it could be his belt or something. Anyways. So Sajid Akram, 50, I guess that's the guy on the left, and Naveed Akram, 24, all right, have been named as the suspects. Who are the Bondi Beach shooting suspects, Sajid and Naveed Akram? The father and son with here it is right here. That's what I wanted to get to. The father and son with alleged links to Islamic State. Now you see why the first article, or not the very first, but the last two articles there. All right, linking those two together and grabbing his name just to pull him up on the screen. All right, this is what they're saying here, and that's why Netanyahu said what he said. You know, to the Australian Prime Minister, and it's all about Esau taking over the world. Okay, with alleged links to Islamic State, had told their family they were going fishing for the weekend. All right, so this is now the fourth error attack. If I'm correct, the last three happened here in Babylon. I believe those last three that just recently happened were all in Babylon, but then you have this fourth one here in Australia. Okay, so but it's all centered around what the propeller hats, and then which is interesting because there's been the talk of really somewhat to some degree, not really heavily, but to some degree, they're talking about deportation of different people like the Somalis, and then well, not really deportation. Well, yeah, the Somalis are, but because I was going to say these so-called Palestinians or whatever, what case may be. But anyways, more so like who I think it was Trump that made that speech recently. Might have been earlier this year. Probably had to be. Speaking about your country's going to hell. It's going to hell. Speaking about Europe, UK, or whatever. All right, and he was talking about what because they're not taking control of their so-called migrant situation. And I think he's also said that he may have to step in to deal with it if they don't, or something like that. See? So, and when you see what the UK did, all right, now all of a sudden, it was migration, this, all the kind of, migrant talk. They use that to all of a sudden say that, hey, you're not going to be able to work in this country without what? A digital ID. So it's the same thing, man. Okay? Things happen in other places, but it always comes back home to Babylon the Great. Because this is the thing about Babylon, and we say this often, different things are always happening in different places, okay? But all those different things are going to happen in Babylon all at once. Like the scriptures say, when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden instructions come upon them, okay? So I remember he made that speech about, who's coming, and there's been a lot of talk about who's coming in and out of the country and so on and so forth. Okay. And so I remember he said that to the UK or whoever it was, and then month or two later, all of a sudden now you're not going to be able to work in this country unless you have a digital ID. Okay. And that's why they keep praising China, because of the system that China has in play. They got Palantir, they're building their data centers. Okay, you got people who are struggling. So if they bring out the UBI, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to take that because they're like, well, hell, I'm already losing. So if the government's just going to pay my way, and what these people are going to do, feel like, yeah, I deserve for the government to pay my way. So they're just going to go with the UBI. So everything that Esau needs is being put on the forefront. He just has to build up to that point. All right, and we're not far off, man, from a digital system and microchips and stuff like that. All right, mass surveillance. Okay, because you see what's happening in the rest of the world. Everybody's doing the same thing, and just America's just not quite to the level that other places are at yet, but they're building up to it. Okay, because Babylon is their golden nugget. All right, so they're building up to it in Babylon, where everybody's eventually going to have to digitize themselves in order to operate, which really is going to lead up to the micro C hit, man. Okay, so it's all interesting how all this stuff was just it's just Esau with a whole bunch of confusion right now, which actually makes me think about that movie Leave the World Behind, where he says it was part of uh, spreading false information and something about causing chaos, confusion, something like that, and then eventually the people do the rest of the job, which is what? Chaos. Just riot, go crazy. They pretty much do the rest of the job for us, because once we push them to the edge, there's nowhere else to go but off the edge. I don't know if we even need to read any more of this. I want you to just pull these guys up, okay? Because these were so-called Palestinians, and this makes the fourth one now, and it's all centered around what terrorist attack. And then you have Benji, okay, making remarks on this here, okay? So there's just a lot going on with that. Check this out. As questions circle over quite how Navi and his father had become radicalized and what fueled their... Because I think, yeah, it just showed one of these dudes was a former soccer player, probably the younger one, the boy that was 24, okay? Or not boy, but, young man that was 24. What fueled their suspected terror attack over the weekend? Suspicions have centered on their family background. Sajid, 50, had arrived in Australia reportedly from Pakistan. Oh yeah, I think I saw that somewhere where it was posted up where they were looking at, they had a picture of, I can't remember which one of these two, but whichever one it was, on one of his driver's license. I don't know how new or old it was. He was wearing a Pakistan shirt, all right, a soccer shirt. So that was probably the younger guy, okay. Yeah, he had a Pakistan soccer shirt on in his driver's license ID, okay. So just Esau, he's petty, but if it gets the job done, he'll use it, because it's all about pulling off his plans, man. On a student, it says he reportedly from Pakistan on a student visa in 1998. Naveed's mother joined them in about 2001. There are claims that Naveed was closer to his father amid suggestions that his parents may have had separated. So that's the backdrop, right? It makes me think about I can't think I think it was one of the Captain America movies where Black Panther was trying to take Bucky off the planet, right? Because he had killed his father. But it was because he was under some mind control, man, where they would like say this particular line, these sentences, and then he was just being go mode, right? He'd get his mission and he's just in go mode. He's about to go get it. Okay. That's no different from MK Ultra, man. All right. Mind controlling these people. Okay. Why you think I used to call them Jason Bourne, right? Sleeper cells. They're just chilling, regular everyday life, till they get the phone call or text message. All right, do this. And they're about to go get it. Okay. And I'm not saying every situation is like that. Some just happen. But then sometimes you got to understand Esau is he's at hand. He's at work. All right. He's put some situation into play. All right, to move forward his agenda. And he just makes it look, natural and organic. Not saying that this is or isn't. I'm just making a point with that. But more than likely, it just screams too much to Esau. I don't really care about him. He's close to his family, all that kind of stuff. This and that. So, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to get too deep into all of this. It's just the story itself. I just wanted to make those points, link those articles together. Okay. Now this is the fourth. Okay, which we know ultimately what Esau wants to do is get the prophets off the street. What's that? Amos chapter 8, verse 11. Okay, where a famine of the word. He wants to bring that famine of the word. All right. So yeah. Hey, have I become your enemy because I tell you the truth? In Esau's case, no, and yeah, because we've been enemies, from the womb. But because the truth is out, all right, he's getting more and more angry, because one thing about it, he can't stop the truth, right? The Lord is in control of that, and he's going to allow him to come after, the ministry at some point or another. Okay. But yeah, this is so interesting now that I saw this. Because I really don't know what this is. I can't tell if there was a fringes, a gun belt, the bottom of a shirt, a design, or something like that. But but Esau has been trying to link, the ministry to these Islamic terrorists and stuff like that too. So there's just a lot of stuff going on, man. Just I think that's it. All I had. Let me just check real quick. You can just do it on screen.